And as the world mourns the loss of Pope Francis, so too do people in northeast Wisconsin. The Bishop of the Green Bay Diocese speaking out following the Pope's passing this morning. New at 4, Samantha Cavalli is in our studio tonight with reaction from the Bishop. Samantha?
Right, Victoria, for over a decade, Pope Francis was known as the Pope of the people, putting aside any differences in our backgrounds or beliefs to serve those who needed it the most. This morning, Bishop David Ricken of the Diocese of Green Bay reminiscing on the several times he sat down and spoke with Pope Francis in the Vatican. The bishop says he carries the lessons shared by Pope Francis with him to this day. Ricken hopes people do not get discouraged about their faith following the Pope's passing, saying God has a plan. He says he would like to see the next Pope instill more hope, as this year is the Jubilee of Hope.
In this anniversary of this Jubilee year, Pope Francis passes away, and he was all about, during this year, bringing hope to people's eyes and seeing life has a purpose. Part of the adventure of life is discovering that purpose, and that gives you hope. And we live life in complete perspective that this life is short compared to eternity.
Now, in light of the Pope's passing, the abbot of Norbert Abbey releasing a statement saying, quote, Pope Francis modeled for the entire world how to live simply and serve the poor. He gave voice to the voiceless and lived for the disenfranchised. The world has lost a peacemaker and the man of mercy. Rooted in the gospel, he taught us to walk humbly with God. May Pope Francis rest in peace, end quote. The diocese will be offering special masses and prayers throughout the next several days for people to attend. Now, the biggest question that remains following the Pope's passing is, what is next? How and when the next Pope will be chosen tonight at 5. We'll send it back to Cami and Bill at Lambeau.